Alright, so we're gonna be showcasing Toji right now in ASTDX. So this unit has some bleed, so that's pretty interesting. I don't think there's a lot of bleed units in this game yet, but I think this unit is probably one of those pretty cool characters. The thing I have against Toji right now is he's ground, right? So ground units are pretty alright, especially if you know they can do 73,000 DPS with All-Star. There is a caveat to that 73,000 DPS with All-Star. By the way, credits to Noah, which he showcased this in his YouTube channel. He shared it to us in CC chat, so I decided to make it part of this video. But he can do apparently 73,000 DPS with All-Star. Now, what I just wanted to show you guys is basically just going to be his basic things, right? What he does, and also his cost, which is 950 to place down. His unique mechanic is basically doing bleed. Oh, look at that, shields, Escanor's worst enemy in AV. Okay, so shields, this is basically what he does. You guys will see right here if I turn on the unit VFX from all enemies. He does the bleed, which is pretty nice. He's also not even expensive. I think he's only about, if I remember correctly, 50,000 or maybe less than that to max out. I'm not really too sure. It doesn't show. Okay, this is the second AoE right here. So he went from line to circle AoE, which is actually pretty small. His circle AoE is pretty small. And then if I keep upgrading him, he'll have Domain Breaker right there, which is a bigger AoE. Again, he's a very cheap unit to upgrade, which is actually really nice. You could place more of him down, I believe. And maybe if you want to, you could probably just keep them at this upgrade right here. So they're doing bleed, because again, they are going to lose their bleed capabilities if you decide to give them their next ability. And basically what their next upgrade does is you now have this passive which sacrifices 5-star units beside himself in a range where at least upgrade 3. So like for example, if I place down a bunch of kilowatts like so, and then I upgrade them, it will very much affect Toji's ability, or Toji's character or damage. Now the problem here, there's actually two problems here in my opinion, is to make the most use of this, I think you're gonna need to have a all-star Toji. And the reason for that is because obviously it's gonna be more worth it, because again, you're gonna be spending money on the 5 stars that you can then sell for him, right? So if you don't have an all-star Toji, you're gonna have to do that repeatedly to maximize their damage. So I think it's not really that worth it to do. Like for example, right here, I've already spent a lot trying to set this up. So if I do this right here, he's going to take all of them and do that much DPS, 7,000. So is it worth it to do that? It is probably going to be worth it if you're if you have an all-star Toji, and if you have other other flying or hill units, because again, he's a ground unit. So you're probably going to have to immediately place down a Killua or Zeke right after. Otherwise, you're going to lose to hill enemies or flying enemies, which there are flying enemies most of the time. Not really most of the time, but these stages are starting to have more and more flying enemies, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, speak of the devil right here, you have air enemies already in infinite, so you can see that no matter how high DPS is doing, you will lose to that. So you're gonna have to place down a another unit, which is pretty interesting. Now, what you can do, in my opinion, is probably just keep them at like the second to the last upgrade. Now, admittedly, their DPS won't be as high than if you actually max them. But remember that at this upgrade right here, they actually still have their bleed, which deals 25% of this unit's damage over 3 ticks. Bleeding enemies take plus 5% damage. So it actually also acts as like a pretty good support. So again, that is actually pretty good, because the enemies will actually take 5% more damage. So if I were you, I'd probably not even bother upgrading him to max, because this one right here is not really going to be as useful unless you have like an all-star Toji that you can really bump up the damage. So that's pretty much it, honestly. But my rating of Toji is probably a pretty good unit. And yeah, that's pretty much it for all-star Toji, or all-star Tower Defense X Toji. Now, he doesn't have any passives, which is again a problem of mine. I am going to make another video about this update and my complaints with it. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.